7 years of silence shattered in one heartbeat. Isaac Moretti, crime boss, untouchable, forbidden, had one rule: never touch his sister's best friend. For 7 years, Ivy Bennett existed in his periphery, invisible and aching. She loved him in the shadows while he pretended she didn't exist. But the night she agreed to date another man, Isaac's control snapped. What followed was a confession that rewired everything, a kiss that broke a promise, a love declared in defiance of loyalty and blood. This is the story of the girl he refused to see until he couldn't look away. If you're hooked, stay until the end. Hit like and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Heck. The rain came down in sheets, hammering the floor-to-ceiling windows of Isaac Moretti's penthouse like 1,000 impatient fists. He stood in the dark, a tumbler of bourbon untouched in his hand, watching the city blur beneath the storm. Manhattan stretched out below him, glittering, ruthless, his. Every building, every shadow, every secret tucked into its grimy corners answered to him in some way. But tonight, none of it mattered. Tonight, Ivy Bennett was going on a date. Isaac's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath, forcing his grip on the glass to relax before it shattered. He'd known this day would come. He'd prepared for it the way he prepared for every inevitability in his line of work, with cold calculation and emotional distance. Ivy wasn't his. She'd never been his. She was Iris's best friend, the girl who'd grown up in his periphery, a constant hum of warmth and laughter that he'd trained himself to ignore. For 7 years, he'd kept his promise. For 7 years, he'd stayed away. And for 7 years, it had been killing him. Isaac. He didn't turn. He knew that voice, sharp, familiar, laced with the kind of affection that came with shared blood and shared secrets. Iris Moretti stepped into the room, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood. She moved like him, with the same predatory grace their father had drilled into them both. But where Isaac had inherited the old man's coldness, Iris had gotten his charm. "You're brooding," she said, coming to stand beside him. "You only brood when something's bothering you. And since nothing in this city moves without your permission, I'm guessing it's personal." Isaac's mouth curved, barely. "You think you know me so well." "I do know you." Iris crossed her arms, studying him with those sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "So what is it? Business? Rivals? Or—" She paused, realization dawning across her face. "Oh, it's Ivy, isn't it?" His silence was answer enough. Iris sighed, the sound heavy with exasperation and something softer, worry, maybe. "Isaac, you promised." "I know. You promised me you'd leave her alone, that you wouldn't drag her into your world, that you'd let her live a normal life." "I know," he said again, his voice dangerously quiet. "Then why do you look like you're about to go to war?" Because he was. Because every instinct he'd honed over a decade of running one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast was screaming at him to move, to act, to claim. Because the thought of Ivy sitting across from some banker with soft hands and a safe job, smiling at him the way she used to smile at Isaac when they were younger, made him want to burn the entire city down. But he didn't say any of that. Instead, he drained his bourbon in one swallow and set the glass down with a quiet clink. "She's going out with Marcus Hale." Iris blinked. "The investment banker? The one who volunteers at animal shelters and probably irons his socks? That's the one. And you know this because I know everything." It wasn't arrogance, it was fact. Isaac had eyes everywhere. He knew which politicians took bribes, which cops looked the other way, which rival families were planning moves against him. Of course, he knew when Ivy Bennett agreed to a date. He'd known the moment Marcus Hale approached her at that charity gala last week, stumbling over his words like a teenager. He'd known when she hesitated, then smiled and said yes. He'd known, and it had felt like a blade between his ribs. Iris rubbed her temples. "Isaac, you need to let this go. Ivy deserves someone good, someone who won't get her killed." "I would never let anything happen to her. That's not the point." Iris turned to face him fully, and for the first time there was real anger in her eyes. "You live in a world where people die, Isaac. Where loyalty is bought with blood and every relationship is a potential liability. Ivy is good. She's kind and hopeful, and she still believes in happy endings. If you pull her into your life, you'll destroy that. You'll destroy her. You don't think I know that? The words came out harsher than he intended. Isaac dragged a hand through his dark hair, frustration cracking through his carefully maintained control. You don't think I've told myself that every single day for the past 7 years? That I've watched her laugh and smile and exist in the same room as me and forced myself to look away because I knew that touching her would ruin everything? Iris's expression softened. Then why does this feel different? Because she's choosing someone else. The admission tasted like ash, and I can't... He broke off, jaw working. I can't let her go. Not to him, not to anyone. That's not your choice to make. Maybe not. Isaac's gaze slid back to the window, to the rain-soaked city and the lights bleeding through the darkness. But I'm going to make it anyway. 3 hours earlier. Ivy Bennett stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying to convince herself that the knot in her stomach was excitement and not dread. It wasn't working. She smoothed down the front of her dress, a simple black sheath that Iris had insisted made her look like a confident professional woman and not a scared rabbit. Iris had also insisted on doing her makeup, which meant Ivy's eyes were dramatically lined and her lips were painted a bold red that felt entirely too brave for someone who was about to have dinner with a man she barely knew. Stop fidgeting, Iris called from the bedroom. You look gorgeous. Ivy poked her head out of the bathroom. I look like I'm trying too hard. You look like someone worth taking on a date. Iris was sprawled across Ivy's bed, scrolling through her phone with the kind of effortless elegance that made Ivy feel like a baby giraffe learning to walk. Marcus is lucky you said yes. Ivy bit her lip. You really think this is a good idea? I think you've spent 7 years pining after someone who's never going to see you the way you want him to. Iris's voice was gentle but firm. Marcus is nice. He's stable. He's not going to break your heart. Unlike my brother, hung unspoken in the air between them. Ivy looked away. Iris didn't know the full extent of it, how deep Ivy's feelings for Isaac ran, how many nights she'd lain awake replaying every brief interaction, every accidental touch, every rare moment when his dark eyes had landed on her and she'd felt the world tilt on its axis. Iris knew Ivy had a crush. She didn't know it had consumed 7 years of her life. I'm ready to move on, Ivy said, and tried to mean it. Good. Iris sat up, her expression brightening. Because Marcus is perfect for you. He's kind, he's sweet, and he definitely won't make you cry into a pint of ice cream at 3 in the morning. Ivy managed to smile. Low bar. But an important one. Her phone buzzed. Ivy glanced at the screen and felt her stomach flip. Downstairs. Take your time. He's here, she said. Iris bounced off the bed and pulled Ivy into a quick hug. You've got this. Just be yourself. And for the love of everything, don't talk about Isaac. I won't. I mean it, Ivy. Tonight is about you and Marcus. Not my emotionally constipated brother who doesn't deserve the mental real estate you've given him. Ivy laughed despite herself. Got it. No Isaac. Good girl. Iris grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Now go break some hearts. The restaurant Marcus chose was exactly what Ivy expected. Upscale but not ostentatious, with soft lighting and quiet conversation humming through the air like a lullaby. He held the door for her, pulled out her chair, complimented her dress. He was, in every measurable way, perfect. And Ivy felt absolutely nothing. So, Marcus said, smiling across the table at her, tell me about yourself. Iris mentioned you work in publishing? Editorial assistant, Ivy confirmed, reaching for her water glass. It's mostly reading manuscripts and making coffee, but I love it. That's great. Passion for your work is important. He leaned forward, genuinely interested. What kind of books do you work on? Literary fiction, mostly. Though I'm trying to convince my boss to let us acquire more diverse voices. It's an uphill battle, but... She stopped, realizing she was rambling. Sorry, I get a little intense about it. Don't apologize, it's refreshing. Marcus's smile widened. Most people I meet in finance only talk about markets and mergers. This is a nice change. He was saying all the right things, doing all the right things. And yet Ivy couldn't shake the feeling that she was acting in a play where she'd forgotten her lines. She was saved from responding by the arrival of their waiter, a young man with slicked back hair and a professional smile. Good evening. Can I start you off with drinks? I'll have a scotch, neat, Marcus said. And for you, Ivy? Just wine, white, please. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Marcus launched into a story about a particularly difficult client, and Ivy tried to focus. She really did. But her mind kept drifting to Iris's apartment, to the Moretti penthouse she'd visited countless times over the years, to the man who lived there and the way he'd looked at her exactly twice in 7 years, with something that might have been interest before he'd looked away again. Stop it, she told herself firmly. This is your chance to move on. Take it. Ivy? She blinked. Marcus was watching her with concern. Sorry, what? I asked if you wanted to share an appetizer. Oh, yes, sure. Whatever you think is good. He smiled, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or the first hint that this wasn't going the way he'd hoped. Ivy felt a stab of guilt. Marcus was nice. He deserved someone who was actually present for their date, not someone mentally cataloging all the ways Isaac Moretti had ignored her over the years. Their drinks arrived. Ivy took a large sip of wine and promised herself she'd do better. She was halfway through that promise when her phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. You can check it, Marcus said. I don't mind. No, it's fine. I'm sure it's just... Her phone lit up with an incoming call. Iris's name flashed across the screen. Ivy frowned. Iris knew she was on a date. She wouldn't call unless it was important. I'm sorry, she said, reaching for the phone. I should... But it wasn't Iris's voice on the other end. It was Isaac's. End the date, he said. Now. Ivy's heart stopped. What? End the date, Ivy. Tell Marcus something came up. Be polite, then go outside. Isaac, what are you... Do it. His voice was low, controlled, but beneath it was something sharp and dangerous, something that made her pulse spike. Don't make me come in there. The line went dead. Ivy sat frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, mind racing. Across from her, Marcus was watching with growing concern. Is everything okay? She swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. There's a family emergency. I have to go. It was a terrible lie, transparent and flimsy. But Marcus was too polite to call her on it. Of course. Do you need a ride? I can... No, thank you. I'll be fine. Ivy was already standing, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. I'm really sorry, Marcus. You've been wonderful. I'm sorry. She didn't wait for his response. She made it out of the restaurant on autopilot, her heels clicking against the pavement as she stepped into the cool night air. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still slick, reflecting the glow of neon signs and headlights. And leaning against a black town car, arms crossed and expression unreadable, was Isaac Moretti. He looked exactly like what he was, dangerous, powerful, carved from shadows and sharp edges. His dark suit was perfectly tailored, his tie loosened just enough to suggest he'd come straight from something important. But it was his eyes that pinned her in place. Those dark, fathomless eyes that had never looked at her the way they were looking at her now, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Get in the car, Ivy, he said quietly. What are you doing? Her voice came out breathless, caught between anger and something far more dangerous. You had no right to... I had every right. He pushed off the car and moved toward her, slow and deliberate. You think I was going to sit in my apartment and pretend I didn't know where you were? Who you were with? You've been pretending I don't exist for 7 years. I know. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke, and something uniquely him. And it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Ivy's breath caught. What? Get in the car, Isaac said again. We need to talk. I don't... Please. The single word broke something open in his expression. Please, Ivy. She should have said no. Should have turned around, marched back into that restaurant and apologized to Marcus. Should have protected her heart the way she'd failed to protect it for 7 years. But she was tired of should. So she got in the car. What? They drove in silence. Isaac sat across from her in the back seat, one arm draped across the leather, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. The partition between them and the driver was up, sealing them in a bubble of tension so thick Ivy thought she might drown in it. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. You just sabotaged my date, Isaac. The least you can do is tell me why." His jaw tightened. "You really want to know why?" "Yes, because I couldn't stand it." The words came out rough, like they'd been dragged from somewhere deep. The thought of you sitting across from him, smiling at him, letting him think he had a chance, it was driving me insane. Ivy stared at him. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to ignore me for 7 years and then swoop in the second I try to move on." "I wasn't ignoring you." "Then what would you call it?" "Survival?" Isaac leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time she saw past the mask he wore, saw the exhaustion, the restraint, the war he'd been waging with himself. "Do you have any idea how hard it's been? Watching you grow up, watching you become this incredible woman, and knowing I couldn't touch you, that I'd promised Iris I'd stay away." "You promised Iris?" Ivy's voice cracked. "That's why—" "She made me swear 7 years ago when you first started coming around. She said you were too good for my world, that if I cared about you at all, I'd let you live a normal life." His laugh was bitter. "And she was right. You deserve someone like Marcus, someone safe, someone who won't put a target on your back just by being near you." "Then why are we here?" "Because I'm selfish." Isaac's gaze burned into hers. "Because I've spent 7 years lying to myself and I can't do it anymore. Not when I know you're out there choosing someone else." The car rolled to a stop. Ivy glanced out the window and realized they were at the marina, a private dock where yachts bobbed gently in the dark water. Isaac opened the door and stepped out, then held out his hand. She took it. He led her down the dock to a sleek yacht at the end, its lights casting golden reflections on the water. The crew was conspicuously absent. They were alone. "Isaac," Ivy started, but he turned to face her and the words died in her throat. "I need you to understand something," he said quietly. "I stayed away because I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought I was protecting you, but tonight, watching you walk into that restaurant with him, I realized the truth." "What truth?" "That staying away from you isn't noble. It's cowardice." He stepped closer, and Ivy's back hit the railing. "And I'm done being a coward." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you, Ivy. I've wanted you since the first time I saw you walk into Iris's apartment with flour in your hair, and a smile that could light up the whole damn city. I've wanted you through every dinner, every holiday, every moment you were near me, and I had to pretend I didn't notice." His hand came up, fingertips brushing her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. "I'm saying that promise I made to Iris? I'm breaking it." Ivy's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. "You can't just—" "I can, and I am." His thumb traced the curve of her lower lip, and she stopped breathing entirely. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me the last 7 years have been one-sided, and I'll take you home right now. I'll never touch you again." She should have lied, should have protected herself, but she'd been protecting herself for 7 years, and where had it gotten her? "I can't," she whispered. Something blazed in Isaac's eyes. Triumph, hunger, relief, all tangled together. "Say it, Ivy. I need to hear you say it." Her voice broke. "I've been in love with you since I was 21 years old." The confession hung between them, raw and irrevocable. Then Isaac kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't the soft, exploratory kiss of a first romance. It was 7 years of pent-up longing and frustration and need poured into the press of his mouth against hers. His hands cradled her face like she was something precious and breakable, even as he kissed her like he was trying to brand himself into her soul. Ivy's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. She'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but reality was so much more intense. Isaac tasted like bourbon and danger and everything she'd ever wanted. When his tongue swept against hers, she made a sound she'd never made before, desperate and wanting and completely undone. He pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against hers, both of them breathing hard. "This changes everything," he said. "I know. Iris is going to kill me. I know. I can't promise you safe, Ivy. I can't promise you normal. His hand slid down to her waist, anchoring her against him. "But I can promise you that I will never let anyone hurt you, that I will protect you with everything I have, and that if you choose this, if you choose me, I will spend every day proving that you made the right call." Ivy looked up at him, at this man who'd haunted her dreams and shaped her desires for 7 years. This man who ruled half of Manhattan with an iron fist, who made grown men shake with fear, who just confessed he'd been watching her all along. "I already chose you," she said softly. 7 years ago. I've just been waiting for you to choose me back." Isaac's expression cracked open, and for a moment she saw past the crime boss, past the cold calculation, to the man beneath. The man who'd held himself back because he thought it was right. The man who'd broken his own promise because he couldn't stand the thought of losing her. "I'm choosing you," he said. "Now, and every day after." Then he kissed her again, slower this time, but no less consuming. And as the yacht rocked gently beneath them and the city lights glittered in the distance, Ivy Bennett let herself fall completely. She'd been falling for 7 years. It was about time someone caught her. By the time they made it back to the car, Ivy's lips were swollen and her carefully applied lipstick was more on Isaac than on her. He kept touching her, small, possessive gestures that sent electricity racing down her spine, a hand at the small of her back, fingers threading through hers, his thumb tracing circles on her wrist. "Where are we going now?" she asked as the car pulled away from the marina. "Your apartment. I'm taking you home." "You could take me to yours." Isaac's gaze darkened. "If I take you to my apartment right now, you're not leaving until morning, and I'm trying to be a gentleman." "Since when?" His laugh was low and dangerous. "Good point." But he didn't change the destination. "We're doing this right, Ivy. I've already broken one promise tonight. I'm not going to rush this." "What if I want you to rush?" "Don't." The single word was strained. "Don't test my control right now. It's hanging by a thread." Ivy bit her lip, fighting a smile. This side of Isaac, raw and wanting and barely restrained, was intoxicating. She'd spent years watching him be untouchable. Seeing him unravel because of her was a kind of power she'd never experienced. When they reached her building, Isaac walked her to her door. In the fluorescent hallway light, he looked slightly less dangerous and more like a man who'd just upended his entire world. "Tomorrow," he said. "I'll call you tomorrow, and we'll figure this out." "We'll figure what out?" "How to tell Iris without her murdering me? How to keep you safe? How to—" He broke off, shaking his head. "Everything. We'll figure out everything." Ivy reached up and pulled his mouth down to hers for one more kiss. When she pulled back, his eyes were molten. "Tomorrow," she agreed. Then softer. "Isaac? Yeah? Thank you for choosing me." His hand cupped her cheek. "Thank you for waiting." She watched him walk away, watched him disappear into the elevator, and only then did she let herself sag against her door. Her heart was still racing. Her whole body was still buzzing with adrenaline and want. 7 years. 7 years of loving him in silence. And now, her phone buzzed, a text from Iris. "How'd it go with Marcus?" Ivy stared at the message, guilt twisting in her stomach. She'd have to tell Iris. They'd both have to tell Iris. And it was going to be a disaster. But as she unlocked her door and stepped into her apartment, still tasting Isaac on her lips, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. She'd made her choice. And so had he. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Ivy didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The way Isaac's voice had sounded on the phone, commanding, possessive. The heat of his mouth on hers, the confession that had rewritten 7 years of her life. He'd been watching. He'd been wanting. He'd been fighting himself the entire time. And now there was no going back. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent and accusatory. Iris had texted twice more asking about the date, and Ivy had responded with vague deflections. "It was fine. I'm tired. Talk tomorrow." Each lie felt like a betrayal, but what was she supposed to say? "Your brother kissed me until I forgot my own name, and I'm pretty sure I'm in love with him even more than I was yesterday." Yeah, that would go over well. When dawn finally crept through her curtains, Ivy gave up on sleep entirely. She showered, changed into jeans and a sweater, and was halfway through making coffee when her phone rang. "Isaac." Her heart jumped into her throat. "Hello?" Good morning. His voice was rough, like he'd been awake as long as she had. Did you sleep? No? Neither did I. A pause. I kept thinking about you. Ivy pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm the wild flutter there. Isaac, I want to see you today. We need to talk to Iris first. I know. He sighed, and she could picture him running a hand through his hair the way he did when he was frustrated. I'm meeting with her this afternoon, alone. I need to tell her before… He broke off. I need to be the one to tell her. She's going to be furious. Probably. His tone suggested he'd faced worse. But she'll get over it. Iris loves you, and she loves me, even when I'm being an idiot. She'll come around. Ivy wished she had his confidence. Iris had been her best friend for 7 years. The person who'd held her when she cried, celebrated every small victory, talked her through every crisis. And Ivy had just spent the night kissing her brother after explicitly being told it was a terrible idea. What if she doesn't? Ivy asked quietly. What if she makes you choose? Then I choose you. No hesitation, no doubt. I already made that decision last night, Ivy. There's no version of this where I walk away from you now. The certainty in his voice undid something inside her. Okay. Okay, he echoed. I'll call you after. And tonight, if you're willing, I want to take you to dinner. A real date. No interruptions. I'd like that. Good. She could hear the smile in his voice. Wear something you feel beautiful in. I want to see you walk into a room and know that you're mine. Heat flooded through her. Possessive. Completely. He didn't sound remotely apologetic. Get used to it. They hung up, and Ivy stood in her kitchen clutching her phone, feeling like she'd stepped into an alternate reality. This was happening. This was actually happening. After 7 years of longing and silence and convincing herself it was hopeless, Isaac Moretti wanted her, claimed her, chose her. The happiness was almost painful in its intensity. She was still processing when her apartment buzzer rang. Ivy frowned, patting to the intercom. Hello? It's me. Iris's voice crackled through. Let me up. I brought bagels and I want to hear everything about last night. Ivy's stomach dropped. Iris, Buzz me up, Bennett. I'm not standing in this hallway all day. There was no avoiding this. Ivy pressed the button, then spent the 30 seconds it took Iris to reach her floor, trying to figure out what to say. The truth felt impossible, but lying to her best friend's face felt worse. Iris swept in carrying a paper bag and 2 coffees, her dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She looked annoyingly perfect for someone who'd probably rolled out of bed an hour ago. So? Iris dropped onto the couch and pulled out a bagel. Tell me everything. Was Marcus as perfect as I thought? Did he charm you? Are you seeing him again? Ivy sat down slowly, coffee cup cradled in her hands like a shield. It didn't work out. Iris's face fell. What? Why? What happened? Ivy took a breath. She couldn't tell her. Not like this. Not before Isaac had a chance to explain. It just wasn't right. The chemistry wasn't there. But you barely gave it a chance. You were so nervous beforehand. Maybe you just… Iris. Ivy met her eyes. It wasn't right. I'm sorry. I know you went to a lot of trouble setting it up. Iris studied her for a long moment, and Ivy had the uncomfortable feeling that her friend could see right through her. There's something you're not telling me. I'll explain. I promise. Just not right now. Why not right now? Because it's complicated. Complicated how? Iris leaned forward, concern replacing annoyance. Ivy, what happened? Did Marcus do something? Because if he… No, Marcus was perfect. A perfect gentleman. Ivy set down her coffee before she spilled it. This has nothing to do with him. Then what… Iris stopped. Her eyes went wide. Oh no. Ivy's heart stuttered. What? It's Isaac, isn't it? Iris's voice dropped to something dangerous. He did something. I saw him last night, and he was in a mood, and I thought it was just business, but… She stood abruptly. What did he do? Iris, please. Did he threaten Marcus? Scare him off? Iris was pacing now, fury building in every step. I swear if he sabotaged your date because of some misguided, overprotective nonsense, I will kill him myself. He didn't threaten anyone, Ivy said quickly. Then what? The words stuck in Ivy's throat. This was wrong. Isaac should be here. They should tell her together. But Iris was staring at her with those sharp green eyes, and Ivy had never been good at lying to her. He told me how he felt, she whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. Iris went very still. How he felt, she repeated slowly. About you. Ivy nodded. And what exactly did he say? That he's wanted me for 7 years. That staying away was killing him. That he... Ivy's voice cracked. That he was breaking his promise to you. Iris's expression shuddered. I see. I'm sorry. I know you didn't want this to happen, but what, Ivy? You just couldn't help yourself? The anger in Iris's voice was cold and cutting. You knew how I felt about this. You knew I didn't want you anywhere near his world. And the second he showed you attention, you just... What? Fell into his arms? It wasn't like that. But then what was it like? Iris's hands were shaking. Explain it to me. Explain how my best friend and my brother decided to go behind my back after I explicitly asked you both to stay away from each other. I love him. The words came out raw and honest. I've loved him for 7 years, Iris. I tried to move on. That's what last night was supposed to be, me finally letting go and finding someone else. But Isaac is dangerous, Iris cut her off. He lives in a world where people get killed for looking at him wrong, where loyalty is currency and relationships are leverage. Do you understand that? Do you have any idea what you're signing up for? I know what he is. No, you don't. Iris's laugh was bitter. You know the version of him that shows up for family dinners and speaks 6 languages and looks good in a suit. You don't know the man who's ordered executions, who's built an empire on blood and fear, who has enemies that would love nothing more than to hurt him by hurting the people he cares about. Ivy stood, meeting her friend's fury head on. You're right. I don't know that version of him, but I know the man who spent 7 years keeping his distance because he thought it was the right thing to do, who looked at me last night like I was the only thing in the world that mattered, who's willing to risk everything, including your anger, because he wants me in his life. That's not romantic, Ivy. That's obsession. Maybe, Ivy's voice softened, but I'm obsessed too. I have been for 7 years, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not. Iris closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. When she opened them again, the anger was still there, but beneath it was something that looked like resignation. You're really doing this. I am. Even though it could get you killed. Even though it means choosing him over me. Ivy's chest tightened. I'm not choosing him over you. You're my best friend, Iris. You always will be, but I can't. She swallowed hard. I can't keep living half a life because I'm afraid. I've been afraid for 7 years. I'm done. Iris stared at her for a long moment. Then she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Iris, wait. I need to go. Iris's hand was on the doorknob, her back to Ivy. I need to think. And I need to have a very long conversation with my brother about boundaries and promises. Please don't be angry with him. He was trying to do the right thing by staying away. Last night was him choosing what he wanted over what I asked him to do. Iris turned and her expression was unreadable. I love you both, but right now I don't like either of you very much. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Ivy sank back onto the couch, her whole body shaking. That had gone about as badly as she'd expected. Maybe worse. The look on Iris's face, hurt and betrayal and fury all tangled together, would haunt her for days. Her phone rang. Isaac. She knows, Ivy said without preamble. A pause. How? She came over. She asked about Marcus, and I couldn't lie to her face, Isaac. He swore softly. What did she say? That I don't know what I'm getting into, that your world is dangerous, that I'm choosing you over her. Ivy pressed her fingers to her eyes, fighting tears. She's right, about all of it. Ivy, she's your sister, your twin, and her voice broke. What if she never forgives us? She will. Isaac's certainty was unshakable. She's angry right now, and she has every right to be. But Iris loves you. She loves both of us. Once she calms down, once we sit down and talk this through properly, she'll understand. You sound very sure of that. Because I know my sister. She's furious right now because she's scared. Scared that I'll hurt you. Scared that my enemies will use you to get to me. Scared that she'll lose you. His voice gentled. But she won't. I won't let anything happen to you, Ivy. And once Iris sees that, once she sees how serious I am about keeping you safe, she'll come around. Ivy wanted to believe him. What if she doesn't? Then we deal with it together. No hesitation. You and me. Whatever comes. The tension in her chest eased slightly. Together. Always. A pause. I'm going to talk to her this afternoon. Clear the air. Make her understand that this isn't some impulsive decision, that I've thought about this, about you for years. His voice dropped. And then tonight, I'm taking you to dinner, just us. No interruptions, no drama, just you and me figuring out what this looks like. I'd like that. Wear the blue dress, the one you wore to Iris's birthday last year. Ivy blinked. You remember what I wore? I remember everything about you, Ivy. His voice was rough with emotion. The way you laugh when you're surprised. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking. The way you looked in that blue dress with your hair down, and how I had to leave the room because I couldn't trust myself to stay away from you. Heat flooded through her. Isaac, tonight, he promised. We'll talk tonight. About everything. After they hung up, Ivy sat in the quiet of her apartment and tried to process the last 12 hours. Her entire life had shifted on its axis. The man she'd loved in silence for 7 years wanted her back. Her best friend was furious. And she was about to step into a world she'd only ever observed from the sidelines. But as terrifying as it all was, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Because for the first time in 7 years, she wasn't invisible. She was seen, wanted, chosen, and that was worth everything. Isaac Moretti didn't do nerves. He'd stared down rival families, negotiated deals worth millions, and made decisions that ended lives. Fear was a luxury he couldn't afford, and uncertainty was a weakness he'd trained out of himself years ago. But standing outside his sister's apartment that afternoon, he felt the closest thing to nervous he'd experienced in a decade. He knocked. Iris opened the door, her expression carved from ice. You have exactly 10 minutes. She turned and walked into the apartment without waiting for him to follow. Isaac stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The space was quintessentially Iris, elegant, organized, with subtle hints of danger in the art on the walls and the books on the shelves. She'd always had their father's taste for beautiful things that could kill you. Sit, she said, gesturing to the couch. I'd rather stand. I don't care what you'd rather do. Sit. Isaac sat. Iris remained standing, arms crossed, every inch of her radiating fury. I'm going to make this very simple, she said. You made me a promise 7 years ago. You swore on our mother's memory that you would leave Ivy alone, that you wouldn't drag her into our world, that you would let her have a normal, safe life. Her voice was dangerously quiet. And last night, you broke that promise. So before I decide whether or not to forgive you, I want to know why. Isaac met her eyes. Because I'm in love with her. Iris's expression didn't change. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. It's the truth. The truth is that you're selfish. You want her, so you took her. Consequences be damned. Iris's hands clenched. Do you have any idea what you've done? The danger you've put her in? Yes. Isaac leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I know exactly what I've done. I've thought about nothing else for 7 years, Iris. Every possible consequence. Every way this could go wrong. Every reason I should stay away. He paused. And I stayed away. Until last night, when I watched her go on a date with another man, and I realized that protecting her from my world meant losing her entirely, and I couldn't do it. So you chose yourself over her safety. I chose us, both of us, together. Isaac's voice hardened. And I know you think I'm being reckless, but you're wrong. I've already started putting protections in place. Security detail, safe houses, protocols. Ivy will be the most protected person in this city. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Isaac stood, frustration breaking through his control. That you don't trust me to keep her safe? That you think I'd let anything happen to her? She's everything, Iris, everything. I would burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt her. I know you would. Iris's voice cracked. That's what scares me. You'll start a war for her. You'll make enemies. You'll put a target on her back that will never go away. She pressed a hand to her chest. And when something happens, because something always happens in our world, she'll be the one who pays the price. Nothing is going to happen to her. You can't promise that. Watch me. Isaac moved closer, and for the first time Iris saw past the crime boss to her brother. I know you're scared. I know you love her and you want to protect her. But she's not a child, Iris. She's a grown woman who knows what she's choosing, and she's choosing me. Because you gave her no other option. You showed up, you kissed her, you told her everything she's wanted to hear for 7 years. Iris's eyes glistened. Of course she chose you, but that doesn't mean it's the right choice. Maybe not. Isaac's voice gentled. But it's her choice to make, not yours, not mine. Hers. Iris turned away, pressing her fingers to her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. I don't want to lose her. You won't. I don't want to lose you either. Isaac crossed the room and pulled his sister into a hug. She resisted for exactly 3 seconds before wrapping her arms around him and holding on tight. I hate you right now, she muttered into his shoulder. I know. You broke your promise. I know. And I'm still furious. I know. Isaac pulled back, hands on her shoulders. But I need you to trust me. Trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust that I'll keep her safe. And trust that this, whatever this becomes, is real. Iris searched his face. You really love her. More than I thought possible. She sighed, the fight draining out of her. You're an idiot. Probably. And if anything happens to her, it won't. But if it does, Iris's eyes went hard. If your world takes her from me, I will never forgive you. Do you understand? Never. Isaac nodded. Understood. Good. Iris stepped back, wiping at her eyes. Now get out. I need to drink wine and process the fact that my best friend is dating my brother. We're not dating. Iris raised an eyebrow. What would you call it? Isaac considered. Mine. Caveman. You asked. Despite everything, Iris smiled. It was small and reluctant, but it was there. She deserves better than you. I know. But she's chosen you anyway, so I guess I have to accept it. Does this mean I'm forgiven? Absolutely not. You're on probation for at least 6 months. Iris pointed at the door. Now leave before I change my mind and kill you. Isaac kissed her forehead. Love you too. As he walked out, Iris called after him. Isaac? He turned. Don't make me regret this. I won't, he promised. And he meant it. By the time evening rolled around, Ivy had changed outfits 4 times. The blue dress Isaac had mentioned hung in her closet, and every time she looked at it, her stomach flipped. He'd noticed. He'd remembered. For 7 years, while she'd thought he was ignoring her, he'd been cataloging details. She slipped into the dress, a deep sapphire that hugged her curves and fell just above her knees. It was elegant without being ostentatious, the kind of dress that made her feel confident and beautiful. She left her hair down in soft waves and kept her makeup simple. When her phone buzzed with a text from Isaac, downstairs, her heart kicked into overdrive. She grabbed her clutch and headed down, heels clicking against the stairs. The moment she stepped outside, she saw him leaning against a sleek black car, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than her rent. His eyes tracked her approach, and the heat in his gaze made her feel like the only woman in the world. You wore it, he said when she reached him. You asked me to. And you listened so well. His hand came up to cup her jaw, thumb brushing her cheek. You look incredible. So do you. Good. Because I plan to spend all night reminding everyone in that restaurant that you're mine. He opened the car door. Shall we? The drive was quiet, charged with anticipation. Isaac kept one hand on her thigh, possessive and grounding. When they pulled up to an upscale Italian restaurant in Tribeca, Ivy recognized it immediately. One of the most exclusive spots in the city, the kind of place that required reservations months in advance. How did you— I own it, Isaac said simply. Of course he did. Inside, they were led to a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. Candles flickered on the table, and soft music played in the background. It was intimate and romantic and completely overwhelming. "This is too much," Ivy whispered. "Nothing is too much for you." Isaac pulled out her chair. "Get used to it." They ordered wine, appetizers, entrees, but Ivy barely tasted any of it. She was too focused on Isaac, the way he watched her, the way he smiled when she laughed, the way his hand found hers across the table and didn't let go. "Tell me something I don't know about you," he said. Ivy blinked. "You seem to know everything already." "Not everything, just the things I could observe." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I want to know what you think about when you can't sleep, what you dream about, what scares you." "You scare me," she admitted. "I know." No apology. "What else?" "The future. What this means. Whether I'm strong enough for your world." She paused. "Whether you'll get bored of me once the chase is over." Isaac's grip tightened. "Never." "You sound very sure." "I am." He leaned forward. "Do you know how many women have tried to get my attention over the years? How many have thrown themselves at me, thinking they could handle what I am?" His eyes burned. "I wasn't interested. Not in them, not in anyone. Because the only woman I've ever wanted was the one I couldn't have. And now that I have you, Ivy, I will never get bored. I will never stop wanting you. You're it for me." Her breath caught. "It for you. It, the end, the only." He brought her hand to his lips. "So stop worrying about whether you're enough. You're everything." Tears pricked at her eyes. "Isaac, I talked to Iris today." The subject change startled her. "How did it go?" "About as well as expected. She's furious, protective, and convinced I'm going to get you killed." He smiled slightly. "But she'll come around. She already is. She told me she didn't like either of us right now. She told me she'd never forgive me if anything happened to you." Isaac's expression turned serious, which is why we need to talk about what comes next. Ivy's stomach tightened. "Okay. My world is dangerous, you know that. But what you don't know are the specifics, the enemies I have, the threats that exist, the precautions we'll need to take." He paused. "If we're doing this, really doing this, you need to understand what you're walking into. Tell me." So he did. He told her about the rival families, the uneasy alliances, the territory disputes. He told her about the security protocols he'd already put in place, the detail that would follow her, the safe houses, the emergency procedures. He told her about the life she'd be living, one where spontaneity was dangerous and trust was earned. It should have terrified her, and parts of it did, but underneath the fear was something stronger, certainty. "I'm still choosing you," she said when he finished. Isaac's eyes searched hers. "Why?" "Because for 7 years I've been half alive, going through the motions, pretending I was okay when I wasn't." She leaned forward. "But with you, I feel everything. Fear and excitement and desire and hope all tangled together. And maybe it's dangerous, maybe it's reckless, but it's real. And I'd rather have real and terrifying than safe and empty." Something shifted in Isaac's expression. Awe, maybe, or reverence. "You're extraordinary. I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He stood moving around the table to pull her to her feet. "Dance with me." There's no music. As if on cue, the soft background music swelled. Isaac pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They swayed together, and Ivy let herself melt into him. "I'm going to take care of you," he murmured against her hair. "In every way that matters. I'm going to protect you and spoil you and make sure you never regret choosing me. And if I want to take care of you too, then we'll take care of each other." He pulled back to look at her. "Partners. In everything." "Partners," she echoed. He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. And as they stood there, wrapped around each other, with the city lights glittering beyond the windows, Ivy felt the last of her reservations fade. This was happening. This was real. And whatever came next, they'd face it together. The fallout came faster than either of them expected. Ivy woke the next morning to 17 missed calls from Iris and a text that simply read, "We need to talk, now." Her stomach dropped. She sat up in bed, her hair still tangled from Isaac's fingers, her lips still tender from his kisses, and felt the weight of what they'd done settle over her like a storm cloud. Of course Iris knew. Iris always knew everything. The question wasn't whether she'd found out, it was how angry she was going to be. The answer, Ivy discovered 30 minutes later when Iris stormed into her apartment using the spare key she'd never bothered to return, was very. "Are you out of your mind?" Iris didn't bother with a greeting. She slammed the door behind her hard enough to rattle the frame and advanced on Ivy like a general preparing for war. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you didn't spend last night with my brother." Ivy's mouth went dry. "Iris, don't." Iris held up a hand, her expression thunderous. "Don't you dare lie to me. Marcus called me at midnight, confused as hell about why you ran out on him. And when I called Isaac to ask what the hell happened, he didn't answer. He never ignores my calls, Ivy. So I went to his penthouse, and guess whose lipstick I found on his collar? The red shade Iris herself had applied yesterday." Ivy's face burned. "I can explain." "Oh, this should be good." Iris crossed her arms, her green eyes, so much like Isaac's but sharper, more cutting, fixed on Ivy with the kind of fury that could level buildings. "Go ahead. Explain to me why my best friend and my brother, who promised me he would stay the hell away from you, decided to blow up both of those relationships in one night." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" Iris's voice cracked, and beneath the anger Ivy heard something worse. Hurt. Betrayal. "You've been my best friend for 7 years. 7 years, Ivy, and in all that time you never once told me you had feelings for Isaac." "Because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what? Like someone who gives a damn about you?" Iris laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Isaac lives in a world where people die, Ivy, where loyalty is currency and every relationship is a transaction. He's not some misunderstood bad boy who's going to change for the right woman. He's a crime boss. He ruins everything he touches." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Iris's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get pulled into his life, the danger, the violence, the constant threat of someone using you to get to him. And when it all falls apart, when you realize that loving Isaac Moretti means living in his shadow and watching your back every second of every day, I'm going to be the one picking up the pieces." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do, because I've lived that life my entire existence." Iris's facade cracked, and for the first time Ivy saw the raw vulnerability beneath. "Do you know what it's like growing up as a Moretti? Never knowing if the people who smile at you actually like you, or if they're just afraid of what your family will do if they don't? Never being able to trust anyone because everyone wants something? Iris, I wanted better for you. I wanted you to have the normal life I never got. And Isaac," her voice broke, "he promised me. He looked me in the eye 7 years ago and promised he would never drag you into this mess." Ivy's heart twisted. "He didn't drag me. I chose this. You don't know what you're choosing. Maybe not, but it's still my choice to make." Ivy stood, forcing herself to meet Iris's gaze even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. "I know you're trying to protect me. I know you think this is a mistake. But I've been in love with your brother since I was 21 years old, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not." Iris stared at her. "You really love him?" "Yes. Even knowing what he is, what he does?" "I'm not naive, Iris. I know Isaac isn't safe. I know being with him means stepping into a world I don't understand. But I also know that he sees me, really sees me, in a way no one else ever has." Ivy's voice steadied. "And if you think I'm going to walk away from that because it's complicated or dangerous, then you don't know me as well as you think you do." For a long moment, Iris said nothing. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller and more lost than Ivy had ever seen her. "He's going to break your heart," she said finally. "Maybe, or maybe he won't. And if I can't support this? If I can't watch you throw yourself into the fire?" Ivy's throat tightened. The thought of losing Iris, her best friend, her sister in everything but blood, was almost unbearable. But she'd already made her choice. "Then I'll miss you, every day. But I'm not walking away from him." Iris closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. I need time to process this, to figure out how I feel about my two favorite people in the world lying to me. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Iris grabbed her purse and headed for the door. She paused with her hand on the knob, her back to Ivy. For what it's worth, I've never seen Isaac look at anyone the way he looks at you, so maybe you're right. Maybe this is different. But if he hurts you, if he so much as makes you cry, I will make his life a living hell, brother or not. Then she was gone, leaving Ivy alone in the echoing silence of her apartment. Ivy sank onto her couch, her hands shaking. That had gone about as well as expected, which was to say, terribly. But at least it was out in the open now. No more secrets, no more hiding. Her phone buzzed. A text from Isaac. How bad? She typed back. She knows. She's furious. She left. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, I'm sorry. This is my fault. It's both our faults. We knew this would happen. Are you okay? Ivy stared at the question. Was she okay? She'd just lost her best friend, possibly permanently. She'd stepped into a relationship that terrified her as much as it thrilled her. She'd upended her entire safe, predictable life for a man who lived in shadows and danger. But when she thought about Isaac's hands on her face, his voice rough with 7 years of longing, the way he'd looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. I'm okay, she typed. Are you? No, but I will be. We need to talk. Tonight. I'll send a car. Where are we going? My place. There are things you need to know. About me. About what being with me actually means. Ivy's pulse quickened. This was it. The moment where Isaac laid all his cards on the table and gave her one last chance to run. Part of her wanted to. The smart, self-preserving part that had kept her alive and unscathed for 28 years. But the part that had loved him for 7 years, the part that had finally been seen, was stronger. Okay, she sent. I'll be ready. Isaac's response came immediately. Ivy, if you want to walk away, now's the time. I won't blame you. I won't fight you. But once you step into my world, there's no going back. I need you to understand that. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the exit, the clean break, the safe choice. She thought about Marcus Hale with his kind smile and his safe job and his uncomplicated life. She thought about the version of herself who could have been happy with that. The version who'd never fallen in love with a dangerous man. That version felt like a stranger. I'm not walking away, she typed. Not now, not ever. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then finally, then I'm all in. No more holding back. No more pretending. You and me, Ivy. All the way. She pressed her phone to her chest, her heart racing. Whatever came next, danger, complications, Iris's fury, she'd face it. Because for the first time in 7 years, she wasn't alone in this. Isaac had chosen her. And she was choosing him right back. The car arrived at 7, sleek and black and utterly conspicuous in front of her modest apartment building. The driver, a man built like a wall with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, opened the door without a word. Ivy slid into the back seat, her palms damp with nerves. The drive to Isaac's penthouse felt longer than it actually was. Ivy watched the city slide past the tinted windows, her mind racing. What exactly was Isaac going to tell her? What did stepping into his world actually entail? She knew the broad strokes, crime family, dangerous business, enemies lurking in shadows, but the details were hazy, wrapped in the kind of deliberate mystery that men like Isaac cultivated. When they pulled up to his building, the driver opened her door and gestured toward the private elevator. Top floor, he's expecting you. Ivy stepped into the elevator alone. The ride up was smooth and silent, giving her too much time to second-guess everything. But when the doors opened directly into Isaac's penthouse, and she saw him standing by the windows with his back to her, all her doubts evaporated. He turned, and the look on his face stole her breath. He ditched the suit for dark jeans and a black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked younger like this, less untouchable, but his eyes, those dark, burning eyes, held the same intensity that had pinned her in place last night. You came, he said. Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would, but I would have understood if you didn't. He crossed the room to her, moving with that predatory grace that made her pulse spike. Last chance, Ivy. Walk away now, and I'll let you go. No hard feelings. No regrets. Liar. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. You'd regret it for the rest of your life. His mouth curved. You're right. I would. He caught her hand, threading their fingers together. Come on, there's someone I want you to meet. He led her through the penthouse to a study she'd never been in before. The walls were lined with books, and a massive desk dominated the space. Sitting behind it, reading glasses perched on his nose, was a man in his 60s with silver hair and Isaac's exact bone structure. Ivy froze. Ivy Bennett, Isaac said, his voice formal. This is my father, Vincent Moretti. Vincent looked up, and Ivy felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. He studied her for a long moment, then set down the document he'd been reading and stood. So, you're the girl who's had my son tied in knots for 7 years, he said, his voice gravelly but not unkind. Ivy's face burned. Don't be embarrassed. It's about time Isaac stopped being an idiot and did something about it. Vincent came around the desk, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd survived decades in a brutal business. He's told me about you. The editor who can't be bought, can't be intimidated, and won't take his nonsense. I never said that last part, Isaac interjected. You didn't have to. I've known you your entire life. Vincent turned his attention back to Ivy. My son operates in a dangerous world, Miss Bennett. I assume he's brought you here to explain exactly how dangerous. He has, Ivy said, finding her voice. Good. Then I'll be blunt. The Moretti family has enemies, rivals who would love nothing more than to see us fall. If they learn that Isaac cares about you, they will try to use you against him. They will threaten you. They may even try to hurt you. This isn't a hypothetical. It's a certainty. Ivy's stomach clenched, but she kept her expression steady. I understand. Do you? Vincent's eyes, so much like Isaac's, softened slightly. I loved a woman once, outside this life. She was kind and good and had no business being near someone like me. I tried to protect her. I gave her security, kept her identity hidden, did everything I could to keep her safe. And one day my enemies found her anyway. The air in the room went cold. What happened? Ivy whispered. They killed her, right in front of me, to prove they could. Vincent's voice was flat, emotionless, but Ivy saw the old pain flickering in his eyes. That's when I learned that love, in our world, is a liability. And the only way to protect the people you care about is to make damn sure your enemies are too afraid to touch them. Isaac's hand tightened on Ivy's. That's not going to happen to her. No, it's not. Vincent's gaze shifted to his son. Because you're going to do what I should have done. You're going to claim her, publicly. Make it clear that anyone who touches her answers to you. And then you're going to eliminate every threat before it gets close enough to matter. I will. I know you will. You're smarter than I was. More ruthless. Vincent looked back at Ivy. He'll keep you safe, Miss Bennett, but you need to understand what you're signing up for. Once you're his, you become part of this family. That means protection, yes, but it also means expectations, loyalty, discretion, the ability to live with moral ambiguity. Ivy swallowed. I can do that. Can you? Vincent leaned against the desk, studying her with the kind of attention that made her feel exposed. Can you watch Isaac make decisions that hurt people and still love him? Can you live in a world where the law is a suggestion and violence is sometimes the only language that matters? Can you be the kind of partner he needs, strong enough to stand beside him, smart enough to know when to push back, and brave enough to not flinch when things get ugly? The questions hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Ivy thought about the life she'd built, safe, predictable, filled with books and coffee shops, and conversations about metaphor and narrative structure. That life felt impossibly distant now, like something she'd read about rather than lived. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know if I can be all those things, but I want to try. Because I love your son, and I think I can be stronger than I believe I am, if he's worth it. He is, Vincent said simply. For all his faults, Isaac is a good man, better than I ever was. If he's chosen you, it's because he sees something in you worth protecting, worth fighting for. He straightened, his expression shifting to something almost warm. Welcome to the family, Miss Bennett. Try to keep my son from doing anything too stupid. I'll do my best. Vincent smiled, a quick, sharp thing that reminded her painfully of Isaac, then nodded to his son and left the room. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Ivy and Isaac alone. Well, Ivy said shakily, that was terrifying. Isaac pulled her into his arms. He likes you. He just told me about watching someone he loved die. That's how you know he likes you. He doesn't share that story with anyone. Isaac's hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up to his. He's right, though, about what I need to do. I'm going to make it very clear that you're mine, Ivy, and anyone who even thinks about touching you will regret it. The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent heat racing through her veins. Yours. Yes. His thumb brushed her lower lip. Is that going to be a problem? That depends. Do I get to claim you back? His eyes darkened. I've been yours for 7 years. You just didn't know it. Then he kissed her, and the rest of the world fell away. This kiss was different from the ones on the yacht. Slower, deeper, laced with a promise that went beyond desire. This was Isaac claiming her, yes, but it was also him offering himself in return. All his darkness, all his danger, all the parts of himself he'd kept locked away. When they finally broke apart, Ivy was breathless and dizzy, and more certain than ever that she'd made the right choice. There's more, Isaac said, his forehead resting against hers. Things you need to know about what I do. About the business. Okay. He led her to the couch and pulled her down beside him, keeping her hand in his like he was afraid she'd disappear. The Moretti family controls most of the eastern seaboard. Shipping, real estate, construction. Some of it's legitimate. Most of it isn't. We move money for people who can't use banks. We provide security for operations the police can't or won't touch. And sometimes when negotiation fails, we use other methods. You mean violence? Yes. He didn't flinch from it. I've hurt people, Ivy. I've made decisions that kept my family safe but destroyed others. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend I'm some kind of reluctant anti-hero. This is who I am. This is what I do. Ivy processed that. It should have sent her running, should have triggered every self-preservation instinct she had. But when she looked at Isaac, at the honesty in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way he was waiting for her to pull away, all she felt was a strange sort of calm. I'm not going to judge you for surviving in the world you were born into, she said quietly, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't lie to me. Ever. If something dangerous is happening, if there's a threat, if you have to do something that's going to keep me up at night, tell me. I can handle the truth. What I can't handle is being kept in the dark. Isaac's expression shifted, something like relief mixed with wonder. You're serious? Completely. If we're doing this, we're doing it as partners, which means you don't get to protect me by hiding things from me. That goes against every instinct I have. I know, but I'm asking anyway. She squeezed his hand. Can you do that? Can you trust me enough to be honest, even when it's hard? For a long moment, Isaac just looked at her. Then he brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. Yes, I can do that. I will do that. Good. Ivy leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Then we'll figure out the rest as we go. They sat like that for a while, wrapped in each other, the city glittering beyond the windows. Ivy felt the steady rhythm of Isaac's heartbeat beneath her cheek, and thought about how surreal this was. 24 hours ago, she'd been preparing for a date with a banker. Now she was sitting in a crime boss's penthouse, promising to be his partner in a world she barely understood. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like coming home. Iris will come around, Isaac said eventually. She's furious now, but she loves us both too much to stay angry forever. I hope you're right. I am. She just needs time to realize that this isn't me corrupting you or you being naive. It's two people who've been circling each other for 7 years finally admitting what they want. Ivy tilted her head to look up at him. What do you want, Isaac? Really? You. In my life. In my bed. By my side when I make decisions and when I come home at night. I want to wake up next to you and know that you're safe. I want to show you off to every person who's ever doubted me and prove that I'm capable of being more than what they think I am. His hand cupped her face. I want everything, Ivy, and I want it with you. Her breath caught. That's a lot of want. I know. Too much? No. She kissed him softly. Just enough. Man. The days that followed were a blur of new normals. Isaac kept his promise about honesty, walking Ivy through the details of his business with a frankness that was both alarming and reassuring. She learned about territory disputes and profit margins, about the careful balance of power that kept the city from descending into all-out war. She learned which families were allies and which were enemies, which politicians were bought, and which were too stubborn to bribe. It was a lot to take in, but Isaac never rushed her, never made her feel stupid for asking questions. And slowly, Ivy began to see the method behind what had always seemed like chaos. The Moretti family wasn't just a criminal enterprise. It was a carefully constructed empire, built on loyalty and fear and a code of honor that was brutal but consistent. She also learned that dating Isaac Moretti came with unexpected perks, like the fact that her morning coffee was now delivered to her office by a driver who looked like he could bench press a car, or that reservations at impossible-to-book restaurants materialized with a single phone call, or that when a particularly aggressive editor tried to take credit for her work, he suddenly and mysteriously transferred to the company's satellite office in Alaska. I didn't have anything to do with that, Isaac had said when she'd confronted him, but his smile had been far too satisfied to be innocent. Iris, true to her word, kept her distance. It hurt more than Ivy wanted to admit. She missed her best friend, missed their marathon phone calls and impromptu wine nights, and the easy comfort of someone who knew her completely. But every time she thought about reaching out, she remembered the betrayal in Iris's eyes and lost her nerve. Isaac felt it too. He didn't say much, but Ivy saw the way his jaw tightened whenever Iris's name came up, the way he checked his phone like he was hoping for a message that never came. They were both bleeding from the same wound, but they had each other, and somehow that made it bearable. 3 weeks after that explosive confrontation, Ivy was working late at her office when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and froze. Iris. Her heart pounded as she answered. Hello? Hey. Iris's voice was quiet, uncertain in a way Ivy had never heard before. Do you have a minute? Of course. Always. Can we meet? There's a coffee shop on 5th and 12th, the one we used to go to. Ivy's throat tightened. When? Now. If you're free. I'm free. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She made it in 15, her pulse racing the entire way. When she pushed through the door of the small, cluttered cafe, she saw Iris sitting in their usual corner booth, 2 cups of coffee already waiting. Ivy slid into the seat across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Iris said, I'm sorry. Ivy blinked. What? I'm sorry for shutting you out, for acting like you'd committed some unforgivable crime. Iris's hands wrapped around her coffee cup. I was angry. I still am, a little. But mostly I just miss my best friend. Tears pricked Ivy's eyes. I miss you too. I've been watching you, both of you, and I realized something. Iris looked up, her green eyes wet. You're good for him. He's different with you, softer, more human. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. He smiles more. He laughs. He's not just the Moretti heir when he's with you. He's just Isaac. He's always been just Isaac to me. I know, that's why this works. Iris reached across the table and took Ivy's hand. I'm not saying I'm thrilled about it. I'm not saying I don't still worry about you getting hurt, but I can see that you love him, really love him, and he loves you, and maybe that's enough. Ivy squeezed her hand. I'm not going to let him hurt me, and I'm not going anywhere. I know, you're too stubborn for that. Iris smiled through her tears. Just promise me one thing. If it ever gets to be too much, if his world starts to crush you, you'll tell me, and I'll help you find a way out. I promise. But I don't think I'm going to need it. You'd better not, because if Isaac breaks your heart, I'll break his kneecaps, brother or not. Ivy laughed, relief flooding through her. Deal. They spent the next 2 hours talking, really talking, the way they used to. Iris shared stories about the family drama Ivy had missed, and Ivy told her about the strange, thrilling reality of being with Isaac. By the time they said goodbye, hugging fiercely in the chilly night air, Ivy felt like a weight had lifted from her chest. She texted Isaac on the way home. Talk to Iris. She's okay. We're okay. His response came instantly. Thank God. I'll tell her I'm sorry tomorrow. She already knows. Come over. I'm already in your building. Ivy's heart jumped. She picked up her pace, practically running the last block to her apartment. And sure enough, when she turned the corner, there was Isaac leaning against her door, looking unfairly gorgeous in his tailored coat. You couldn't wait, she teased, unlocking the door. Not when it comes to you. He followed her inside, shutting the door and pulling her into his arms in one smooth motion. How do you feel? Lighter, like I can finally breathe again. Good. He kissed her forehead, then her cheeks, then finally her mouth. I hated seeing you hurt. I hated being the reason you and Iris weren't speaking. That wasn't on you. That was on me. Isaac's hand slid down to her waist, anchoring her close. But it's done now. We're all moving forward. Ivy looked up at him, at this man who'd turned her world inside out and somehow made it better. Where are we moving forward to? Wherever you want, as long as it's together. She pulled him down for another kiss, slower this time, full of promise. And as they stumbled toward her bedroom, shedding clothes and inhibitions in equal measure, Ivy thought about how far they'd come in such a short time. From 7 years of silence to this, raw and real and absolutely terrifying. But she wouldn't change a single moment, because Isaac Moretti had finally chosen to see her, and she was never letting him look away. The threat came on a Tuesday. Ivy was walking back to her office after lunch, lost in thought about the manuscript she'd been editing, when a black SUV pulled up alongside her. She barely had time to register it before the back door swung open and a man stepped out, tall, clean-cut, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miss Bennett, he said pleasantly, I wonder if you have a moment to talk. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Instead, she stopped walking and kept her voice level. I don't know you. No, but I know you. You're Isaac Moretti's girl. That makes you very interesting to certain people. He gestured to the open car door. Just a quick conversation, nothing to worry about. I'm not getting in that car. I didn't think you would. His smile widened. Smart. Isaac chose well. But you should know that your boyfriend has been making some decisions that have upset the natural order of things. Expansion into territories that don't belong to him. Deals that cut out families who've operated in this city for generations. Ivy's heart was pounding, but she forced herself to stay calm. Isaac had prepared her for this, told her that eventually someone would try to use her to send him a message. She just hadn't expected it to happen in broad daylight on a busy street. If you have a problem with Isaac, take it up with him. Oh, we will. But first, we wanted to make sure you understood your position. The man took a step closer, and Ivy saw the warning in his eyes. You're a liability, Miss Bennett, a weakness in an otherwise impenetrable armor, and weaknesses have a way of getting exploited in our line of work. Is that a threat? It's a courtesy, a heads up, if you will. He pulled out a business card and held it out. When things get ugly, and they will get ugly, you might want to reconsider your allegiances. We can offer protection, safety, a way out. Ivy didn't take the card. I don't need a way out. Everyone needs a way out eventually. He tucked the card into her coat pocket before she could stop him. Think about it, Miss Bennett, and tell Isaac that the Castellanos send their regards. Then he was back in the SUV, and it pulled away smoothly into traffic, leaving Ivy standing on the sidewalk with her hands shaking and adrenaline flooding her system. She made it back to her office on autopilot. The moment she was alone, she pulled out her phone and called Isaac. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? How do you know something's wrong? Because you never call me during work hours. Talk to me, Ivy. She told him everything, the SUV, the man, the veiled threat wrapped in polite conversation. With every word, she could feel Isaac's fury building on the other end of the line, sharp and dangerous as a blade. Where are you now? His voice was deadly calm. My office. Don't leave. I'm sending Marcus and James. They'll be there in 10 minutes. Isaac, don't argue with me on this. The Castellanos just declared war, and you're the target they chose to make their point. Until I handle this, you don't go anywhere without security. Ivy's stomach clenched. What are you going to do? What I should have done weeks ago. Make it very clear that touching you is a death sentence. There was movement on his end, voices in the background. I have to go. Stay put. Don't trust anyone you don't know. And Ivy? Yeah? I love you. I should have said it before now, but I'm saying it now. I love you, and I will burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt you. The line went dead before she could respond. Ivy sat at her desk, the phone still pressed to her ear, her mind reeling. Isaac loved her. He'd said it so matter-of-factly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, and she hadn't even had a chance to say it back. She was still processing when her office door opened and two men stepped inside, both built like linebackers, both wearing the kind of suits that couldn't quite hide the weapons beneath. The taller one nodded to her. Miss Bennett? I'm Marcus. This is James. Mr. Moretti sent us. I know. Ivy stood on shaky legs. What happens now? Now you finish your workday while we make sure no one gets within 20 feet of you. When you're ready to leave, we'll take you to the penthouse. Mr. Moretti will meet you there. It was surreal having bodyguards. They stationed themselves outside her office, silent and imposing, and Ivy tried to focus on work. But her mind kept circling back to the encounter on the street, to the cold certainty in that man's eyes, to Isaac's promise to burn the city down. She'd known his world was dangerous. She'd accepted it, prepared for it. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it viscerally were two very different things. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, Ivy was exhausted and wired in equal measure. Marcus and James escorted her down to a waiting car. Not Isaac's usual town car, but an armored SUV with tinted windows that screamed security. They drove through the city in tense silence, and when they pulled up to Isaac's building, Ivy saw more men stationed at the entrance. The penthouse, when she stepped into it, felt like a fortress. Isaac was waiting for her. The moment the elevator doors opened, he crossed the space between them and pulled her into his arms, his hand cradling the back of her head like she was something infinitely precious. Are you okay? His voice was rough against her hair. I'm fine. Shaken, but fine. Ivy pulled back to look at him. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with barely contained rage. What did you do? What I had to. He led her to the couch and pulled her down beside him, keeping her close. The Castellanos have been pushing into my territory for months. I've been patient, trying to negotiate, trying to avoid an all-out war. But the moment they approached you, they crossed a line. So what now? Now I make an example. Isaac's thumb traced circles on her wrist, a soothing gesture at odds with the violence in his words. I'm calling a meeting, all the families, and I'm going to make it clear that you are untouchable, that anyone who so much as looks at you wrong will answer to me personally. Ivy's throat tightened. That's going to make me a bigger target. No. It's going to make you radioactive. Right now, you're a potential weakness. After tomorrow, you'll be a declared asset. There's a difference. I don't understand. Isaac turned to face her fully, his expression intense. In my world, family is sacred. Once you're claimed as part of the Moretti family, you're protected by every alliance we have. Touching you becomes the equivalent of declaring war on multiple fronts. Most people aren't stupid enough to risk that. Most people. The ones who are, I'll handle personally. His hand cupped her face. I meant what I said earlier. I love you, Ivy, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you too. I should have said it weeks ago, but I was afraid. Bitek, don't be afraid. Not of this. Not of us. He kissed her softly, a counterpoint to the violence simmering beneath his controlled exterior. We're going to get through this. Together. She believed him. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the very real threat hanging over them, she believed him. They spent the night wrapped around each other, Ivy falling asleep to the steady rhythm of Isaac's heartbeat while he stayed awake, planning his next move with the cold precision that had made him one of the most feared men in the city. The meeting was set for the following evening at a neutral location, an upscale restaurant that catered to exactly this kind of gathering. Ivy wasn't invited, but Isaac insisted she stay at the penthouse with doubled security. She paced the living room while he got ready, watching him transform from the man who held her gently into the crime boss who commanded fear. I wish I could be there, she said. No, you don't. Isaac adjusted his cufflinks, his movements precise. These meetings are theater. posturing and threats wrapped in expensive suits and aged whiskey. You don't need to see that side of things. I thought we agreed on honesty, on being partners. He turned to her, and for a moment she saw the conflict in his eyes. You want to come? I want to understand what you're walking into. Isaac studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but you stay by my side. You don't speak unless spoken to. And if I tell you to leave, you leave immediately. No questions. Agreed. An hour later, Ivy found herself in the back of the armored SUV, Isaac's hand firm on her thigh, dressed in a black dress that Iris had dropped off earlier with a note that simply read, "Armor up, knock them dead." The restaurant was closed to the public. Its elegant interior filled instead with men in expensive suits and women dripping in diamonds. Ivy recognized a few faces from news articles: politicians, business magnates, people who wielded power in legitimate and illegitimate ways. The air hummed with tension. Isaac kept her close as they moved through the room, his hand on her lower back, his presence a shield. Eyes tracked them, curious, calculating, hostile. Ivy lifted her chin and met their gazes without flinching. At the head of the room, a large table was set up. Isaac led her to it, pulling out a chair for her before taking his own seat. Across from them sat a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold blue eyes. Antonio Castellano, Ivy realized, the head of the family that had threatened her. Moretti, Antonio said, his voice smooth. You've called us here. I assume there's a reason. There is. Isaac's voice carried through the room, commanding immediate attention. Yesterday, one of your men approached my partner, made threats, implied that her safety was negotiable. Murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd. Antonio's expression didn't change. Is that so? It is, and I'm here to make something very clear. Isaac stood, and the room fell silent. Ivy Bennett is under my protection. She is part of the Moretti family, and anyone who touches her, threatens her, or even thinks about using her to get to me will face consequences that will serve as a cautionary tale for generations. Strong words, Antonio said, but words are cheap in our business. Then let me be more specific. Isaac's voice dropped, dangerous and soft. You've been expanding into my territory, testing boundaries, seeing how far you can push before I push back. I've been patient because I prefer negotiation to bloodshed, but that patience has limits, and you found them the moment you involved her. He gestured to Ivy, and every eye in the room turned to her. She fought the urge to shrink back, instead straightening her spine and meeting Antonio's gaze directly. Here's what's going to happen, Isaac continued. You're going to pull back from the disputed territories. You're going to issue a formal apology to Miss Bennett, and you're going to make it known throughout the city that she is protected. In return, I won't dismantle your operations piece by piece and scatter your family to the winds. Antonio laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're threatening me? In front of witnesses? I'm stating facts. You made this personal when you approached her. Now you get to live with the consequences. Isaac leaned forward, his eyes burning. I've taken down bigger families than yours for lesser offenses. Don't test me on this. The tension in the room was suffocating. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Vincent Moretti stood from his seat at the far end of the table, his presence commanding immediate respect. My son is right, Vincent said, his gravelly voice cutting through the silence. Miss Bennett is family, and we protect our family, always. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each family head present. I'm sure you all remember what happened to the Salvatores when they thought they could use my daughter against me. I trust we won't need a repeat of that lesson. The reference was clear. Ivy didn't know the details, but the shift in the room's energy told her everything she needed to know. The Salvatores had made a mistake, and they'd paid for it. Antonio's jaw tightened. This is an overreaction. No, Isaac said quietly. This is a statement. Touch her, and you die. Threaten her, and your organization crumbles. Even think about using her against me, and I will make sure your name becomes synonymous with failure and pain. He sat back down, his hand finding Ivy's beneath the table. Now, does anyone else have questions about where Miss Bennett stands in this ecosystem, or can we move on to more productive discussions? Silence. Then, slowly, Antonio nodded. No questions. Consider the matter resolved. Good. Isaac's thumb brushed across Ivy's knuckles, a gentle gesture in stark contrast to the violence he'd just promised. Then let's talk about territory boundaries and profit sharing. I believe we have a lot to cover. The meeting continued for another 2 hours, but Ivy barely processed any of it. She was too focused on the way Isaac commanded the room, the respect and fear he commanded with every word. This was the man she'd fallen in love with, yes, but it was also the man who ruled an empire with an iron fist. And somehow, watching him defend her with such absolute certainty, she fell even deeper. When they finally left the restaurant, Isaac was silent during the drive home. But the moment they were back in the penthouse, he pulled Ivy into his arms and held her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," he said against her hair. "I'm sorry you had to see that. Had to be part of that." "I'm not." Ivy pulled back to look at him. "I needed to see it, to understand what you do, who you are in that world. And I'm not afraid." She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I'm not naive, Isaac. I know what you just did, the threats you made, the violence you promised, and I know you meant every word, but I also know you did it to protect me, to make sure I'm safe, and I can live with that. You shouldn't have to. Maybe not, but I choose to." She kissed him softly. "You told me you love me. You proved it tonight in front of everyone who matters in your world. Now I'm telling you, I love you too. All of you. The parts that are gentle and the parts that are dangerous. I love you, and I'm not going anywhere." Isaac's control cracked. He kissed her with a desperation that stole her breath, his hands tangling in her hair, his body pressing her back against the wall. When he finally pulled away, they were both breathing hard. "Move in with me," he said. Ivy blinked. "What?" "Move in with me. I want you here, every night. I want to wake up next to you and know you're safe. I want this to be our home, not just mine." His forehead rested against hers. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been together for a few weeks. But I've waited 7 years for you, Ivy. I don't want to wait anymore." Her heart was racing. "That's a big step." "I know. And if you're not ready, I'll wait. But I'm asking anyway, because I need you to know that this isn't casual for me. You're not some temporary thing I'll get bored with. You're it, the end game, the person I want to build a life with." Ivy looked around the penthouse, at the floor-to-ceiling windows, the expensive furniture, the life Isaac had built for himself. Then she looked at him, at the vulnerability in his eyes, the hope and fear warring in his expression. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay. I'll move in with you." She laughed at his stunned expression. "Did you think I'd say no? I thought you'd need time to think about it. I've been thinking about it since the first night you kissed me on that yacht. Maybe longer." She wound her arms around his neck. "I love you. And if you want me here, then this is where I want to be." Isaac's smile was brilliant, transforming his entire face. He picked her up and spun her around, and for a moment they were just two people in love, the danger and darkness forgotten. But later that night, as Ivy lay in Isaac's arms, she thought about the meeting, about the threats and the power plays, and the very real violence simmering beneath the surface of every interaction. She'd meant what she said. She wasn't afraid. But she also wasn't foolish enough to think this was over. Antonio Castellano had backed down publicly, but men like that didn't forget slights. They waited, planned, looked for weaknesses, and Ivy, for all of Isaac's protection, was still the most obvious weakness in his armor. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac's voice was drowsy against her hair. "That I need to learn how to protect myself." He tensed. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I'm not going to be a liability. If I'm part of this world now, I need to know how to handle myself. Self-defense, awareness, whatever it takes to make sure I'm not just someone you have to constantly protect." Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Okay. Okay? I'll set it up. Training. The best instructors I have. But Ivy, yeah? You being a liability isn't the problem. You being something I can't afford to lose is." His arm tightened around her set. "That's what makes this dangerous, not your weakness. My fear of living without you." Ivy's throat tightened. She turned in his arms, kissing him with all the love and certainty she felt. Then we make sure you never have to find out what that's like." He kissed her back, slow and deep, and they lost themselves in each other again. And as the city lights glittered beyond the windows and the night wrapped around them like a cocoon, Ivy made herself a promise. She would become strong enough to stand beside Isaac, not behind him, not as someone who needed protecting, as his partner, his equal. The woman who loved a dangerous man and chose to be dangerous right back. The training started the next morning. Ivy stood in the private gym on the lower level of Isaac's building, wearing workout clothes that felt foreign on her body, facing a woman who looked like she could kill someone with her pinky finger. Her name was Sophia, and according to Isaac, she'd trained half the security personnel in the city. "We're going to start with awareness," Sophia said, circling Ivy like a predator assessing prey. "Most people who get hurt do so because they're not paying attention. They're on their phones, lost in thought, making themselves easy targets." "I was paying attention when that man approached me," Ivy said. "Were you? Tell me what you remember. Every detail." Ivy closed her eyes, reconstructing the moment. Black SUV, tinted windows. It pulled up from behind me, so I didn't see it coming until it was already there. The man was tall, maybe 6'2", clean cut, expensive suit, wedding ring on his left hand. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. When she opened her eyes, Sophia was nodding approvingly. "Good. You observed. Now we teach you what to do with those observations. How to position yourself so you always have an exit. How to read body language. How to hurt someone badly enough to get away." The sessions were brutal. Sophia didn't coddle her, didn't make allowances for the fact that Ivy had never thrown a punch in her life. She taught her where to strike to cause maximum damage: throat, eyes, knees, groin. She drilled escape techniques until Ivy's muscles screamed and her hands were bruised. She ran scenarios over and over until Ivy could react on instinct instead of thought. Isaac watched sometimes, standing in the shadows with his arms crossed and an unreadable expression on his face. Ivy knew what he was thinking, that she shouldn't have to learn this, that his world was corrupting the gentle woman he'd fallen in love with. But when their eyes met, she saw something else too: pride, relief. The understanding that she was doing this not because she had to, but because she chose to. After 2 weeks of training, Sophia declared her ready for the next phase. "You're not going to win a fight against someone twice your size," Sophia said bluntly. "But you don't need to win. You need to create enough chaos to escape or for help to arrive. You need to be unpredictable. And most importantly, you need to be willing to hurt someone without hesitation." "I can do that," Ivy said, and meant it. Sophia studied her with those sharp, assessing eyes. "Yes, I think you can." That night, Isaac took Ivy to dinner at an exclusive restaurant overlooking the harbor. It was the first time they'd gone out publicly since the meeting with the families, and Ivy felt the weight of eyes on them the moment they walked in. Some gazes were curious, others were calculating. A few were openly hostile. Isaac's hand never left her back as they were led to their table. A private booth with a view of the water and enough distance from other diners to allow for intimate conversation. "You've been different lately," Isaac said once they were alone. "Different how?" "Stronger, more confident." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I like it, but I also miss the woman who blushed whenever I looked at her." Ivy smiled. "She's still here. She just learned how to break someone's nose if they threaten her." Isaac laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Fair enough." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "There's something I want to give you." He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and set it on the table between them. Ivy's heart stuttered. "Isaac, it's not what you think. Not yet, anyway." He opened the box, revealing a ring with a stunning emerald set in platinum, surrounded by small diamonds. "This was my grandmother's. She was the only person in my family who ever told me that power without love was just tyranny, that the empire we built meant nothing if we didn't have people worth protecting." Ivy stared at the ring, her throat tight. "I can't take this." "Yes, you can. You already moved in with me. You're training to protect yourself in a world you never asked to be part of. You stood beside me in front of every major crime family on the East Coast and didn't flinch." His eyes held hers. "This ring has been in my family for 3 generations. It's given to the women who stand beside us, who make us better than we have any right to be, and I want you to have it. It's too much. It's not enough. Isaac took the ring from the box and held it up. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. But I'm asking you to wear this and know that when I do ask, and I will ask, the answer is already decided. You're mine, Ivy, and I'm yours. Completely. Tears blurred her vision as he slipped the ring onto her right hand. It fit perfectly, the emerald catching the candlelight and throwing green fire across the table. It's beautiful, she whispered. You're beautiful. The ring is just a symbol. Isaac brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. I love you, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. And I want the whole world to know it. Ivy's heart felt too big for her chest. I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. Good. Fear keeps us sharp, keeps us from getting complacent. He released her hand reluctantly. Now eat. You're going to need your strength for what I have planned later. What do you have planned? His smile was wicked. You'll see. They ate slowly, savoring both the food and each other's company. Isaac told her about a business deal he was working on, something legitimate this time, a real estate development that would bring jobs to a struggling neighborhood. Ivy shared stories about the new manuscript she was editing, a debut novel by an author who reminded her why she loved her job. It was normal, domestic, the kind of evening any couple in love might share, except for the security details stationed discreetly around the restaurant, and the gun Ivy knew Isaac carried beneath his jacket, and the ring on her finger that marked her as part of a world where violence was currency and power was everything. But somehow, that didn't diminish the moment. If anything, it made it more precious. They'd fought for this, fought through 7 years of silence, through Iris's fury, through threats and territory disputes, and the very real danger that came with loving someone like Isaac Moretti. And they'd won. They were finishing dessert when Isaac's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. What's wrong? Ivy asked. Antonio Castellano is dead. The words hung in the air between them. Ivy set down her fork carefully. How? Car accident. Single vehicle. Late last night. Went off a bridge into the river. Isaac's jaw tightened. Convenient timing. You think someone killed him? I know someone killed him. The question is who and why. He typed out a quick response to whoever had sent the message, then looked at her. I need to handle this. Tonight. Can you get home okay with Marcus? Of course. But Isaac, be careful. Always. He stood and came around to her side of the table, pulling her up and into his arms. Go straight to the penthouse. Don't stop anywhere. Don't talk to anyone you don't know. And if anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. I will. I promise. She kissed him, trying to pour all her worry and love into it. I'll be waiting. He held her for a moment longer, then released her and was gone, moving through the restaurant with the purposeful stride of a man heading into battle. Marcus appeared at her elbow. Ready, Miss Bennett? As I'll ever be. The drive back to the penthouse was tense. Marcus kept his eyes on the mirrors, his hand never far from the weapon Ivy knew he carried. She watched the city slide past the windows and thought about Antonio Castellano. Dead. Murdered, probably, though made to look like an accident. Who would benefit from his death? And more importantly, would they come after Isaac next? The elevator ride up to the penthouse felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, Ivy stepped into the familiar space and felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. This was home now. Safe. Protected. She changed into comfortable clothes and tried to distract herself with work, but her mind kept circling back to Isaac. Where was he? What was he walking into? The not knowing was torture. It was past midnight when she finally heard the elevator. She was off the couch and moving before she could think, relief flooding through her when Isaac stepped into the penthouse. Then she saw his face. What happened? She asked. It was his own family. Isaac's voice was flat, emotionless in the way that meant he was barely holding himself together. His nephew, Marco. He's been planning a coup for months, waiting for the right moment. Antonio's death wasn't retaliation for the meeting. It was opportunity. Is Marco coming after you? No. He's smarter than his uncle. He called a meeting tonight, invited all the family heads, including me, laid out his vision for how the Castellano family is going to operate under his leadership. Then he apologized for his uncle's behavior toward you. Ivy sank onto the couch. He apologized. Publicly. In front of everyone. Said that Antonio's old-school approach had made the family weak. That threatening you was a strategic mistake that never should have happened. Isaac sat beside her, his shoulders tight with tension. Then he offered an alliance, access to his shipping routes in exchange for protection on the docks. What did you say? I said yes, because turning him down would have been insulting, and because despite everything, it's actually a good deal. He scrubbed a hand over his face. I also said that if anyone in his organization so much as looks at you wrong, the alliance is void, and I'll treat it as an act of war. And he agreed. He agreed. Put it in writing. Had his lawyers drafted on the spot. Isaac turned to look at her, and she saw the exhaustion in his eyes. You're officially untouchable now, Ivy. Every major family in the city knows that hurting you means going to war with the Morettis. You're probably safer than I am at this point. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt a different kind of weight settling over her shoulders. The weight of responsibility, of being someone important enough to start wars over. I don't know how to feel about that, she admitted. Neither do I. Isaac pulled her into his arms, and she felt the tension slowly bleed out of him. I wanted you safe. Now you are. But the cost was bringing you deeper into this world, and I'm not sure that's actually better. Hey, Ivy pulled back to look at him. I chose this. I choose you every day. Stop second-guessing whether I can handle it. You shouldn't have to handle it. But I do. And I am. And I'm not the fragile thing you seem to think I am. She took his face in her hands. I'm strong enough for this, Isaac. For you. For us. You need to start believing that. He stared at her for a long moment. Then his mouth curved into a real smile. You're right. You are strong enough. Stronger than I gave you credit for. He kissed her softly. I'm sorry for underestimating you. Don't do it again. I won't, I promise. They sat together in the quiet, wrapped around each other, the city glittering beyond the windows. And for the first time since this whole thing started, Ivy felt something like peace settle over her. The danger wasn't gone. It would never be completely gone, not in Isaac's world. But they'd survived the worst of it. They'd made it through threats and territory disputes and family drama and come out the other side stronger. Together. The weeks that followed brought a strange sort of normalcy. Ivy settled fully into the penthouse, filling it with her books and her laughter and her presence. She continued her training with Sophia, not because she needed to anymore, but because she'd discovered she actually enjoyed it. The power of knowing she could protect herself was addictive. Isaac's business stabilized. The alliance with Marco Castellano opened new opportunities, and the other families, seeing the shift in power dynamics, fell in line. There were still skirmishes, there would always be skirmishes, but nothing that threatened the careful balance they'd achieved. Iris became a regular fixture at the penthouse again. She and Ivy fell back into their old rhythms, though with a new understanding between them. Iris had accepted that Isaac and Ivy were a permanent thing, and while she still worried, she'd learned to trust that Ivy could handle herself. I have to admit, Iris said one evening while the three of them had dinner together, you've surprised me. Both of you. How so? Isaac asked. I thought this would end in disaster. Ivy getting hurt or killed, you spiraling into guilt and rage, me caught in the middle trying to pick up the pieces. She looked between them, her expression soft. Instead, you've somehow made it work. You're happy, both of you, and it's nice to see. High praise from you, Isaac said dryly. Don't let it go to your head. But Iris was smiling. I'm just saying that I was wrong. About you two. About what this would become. And I'm glad I was wrong. Ivy reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We couldn't have done it without you. You brought us together even if you didn't mean to. Yeah, well, don't expect me to take credit when you two inevitably do something stupid. They laughed, and the sound filled the penthouse with warmth. This was family, Ivy realized. Not just blood, but choice. The people who stood by you even when they didn't understand your decisions, who worried and fought and forgave and loved anyway. 2 months after Antonio Castellano's death, Isaac took Ivy back to the yacht where he'd first kissed her. They sailed out into the harbor as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Why are we here? Ivy asked, though she had her suspicions. Isaac didn't answer immediately. He just took her hand and led her to the bow of the yacht, where the city spread out before them like a glittering promise. 7 years ago, I promised Iris I wouldn't drag you into my world, he said quietly. I kept that promise until I couldn't anymore. Until watching you choose someone else broke something in me that I couldn't fix. Isaac, let me finish. He turned to face her, and in the fading light, his eyes were molten. You changed everything. You made me want things I'd convinced myself I couldn't have. A real relationship, a partner, a future that looked like more than just power and territory and endless maneuvering. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Ivy's breath caught. I already gave you my grandmother's ring, but that was a promise. He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond that caught the sunset and threw rainbows across the deck. This is a question. He dropped to one knee and Ivy's hands flew to her mouth. Ivy Bennett, you are the bravest, strongest, most incredible woman I've ever known. You walked into my world with your eyes open and you didn't just survive it, you thrived. You made me better, made me want to be better. And I can't imagine spending the rest of my life with anyone else. His voice roughened. Will you marry me? Ivy was crying, tears streaming down her face, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Yes, of course, yes. Isaac stood and slipped the ring onto her left hand, and then he was kissing her and she was kissing him back, and the whole world narrowed to just the two of them, suspended in this perfect moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I love you too. So much. Even knowing that marrying me means you're stuck with this life, with the danger and the complications and the constant need to watch your back, especially knowing that, because you're worth it. We're worth it. She kissed him again, slower this time. I spent 7 years loving you in silence. I'm not wasting another second. They sailed back to the city as the stars came out, the ring on Ivy's finger catching the moonlight. And when they finally docked and made their way back to the penthouse, Ivy felt like she was floating. The engagement party happened 2 weeks later at Iris's insistence. She'd taken over the planning with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested she was making up for lost time, and the result was a glittering affair that brought together Isaac's legitimate business contacts, family allies, and even a few politicians who owed him favors. Ivy stood beside Isaac, wearing a dress that Iris had picked out and the engagement ring that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, greeting people she'd only read about in newspapers. It was surreal and overwhelming and absolutely perfect. You look stunning, a familiar voice said, and Ivy turned to find Vincent Moretti standing beside her, champagne in hand. Thank you, and thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. It's not every day my son does something that doesn't involve territorial expansion or strategic alliances. Vincent's eyes twinkled. Though I suppose this is a strategic alliance of sorts. The best kind, Ivy agreed. He's happy. I haven't seen him this happy and, well, ever, actually. Vincent's expression grew serious. You're good for him. You make him remember that there's more to life than power. I hope you'll continue to do that. I will. I promise. Good. Because this family needs someone like you. Someone who isn't afraid to tell us when we're wrong. Someone who chooses to be here instead of being born into it. He raised his glass. Welcome to the Morettis, Ivy. Officially. They toasted and Ivy felt the last piece of resistance melt away. This was her family now. Complicated and dangerous and absolutely hers. The party wound down in the early hours of the morning. Iris was the last to leave, pulling Ivy into a fierce hug. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. You tamed the beast. Ivy laughed. I didn't tame him. I just reminded him he was human. Same thing. Iris pulled back, her eyes wet. I'm so happy for you, for both of you. You deserve this. Thank you for everything. For being my friend even when you were furious with me. For forgiving us. For being here. Always. You're my sister now, officially. Iris kissed her cheek. Now go find your fiancé and celebrate properly. Ivy found Isaac on the balcony, looking out over the city with a champagne bottle in hand, and that thoughtful expression she'd come to recognize as him processing the evening. Penny for your thoughts, she said, sliding her arms around his waist from behind. Just thinking about how much has changed in 3 months. How different my life looks now compared to what I thought it would be. He set down the bottle and turned to pull her into his arms. I thought I'd spend my life alone. Powerful, yes. Successful, definitely. But fundamentally alone because I couldn't risk letting anyone get close enough to matter. And now? Now I can't imagine being without you. You've become so essential to my existence that the thought of losing you is more terrifying than any business rival or territory dispute. He cupped her face. You've made me vulnerable, Ivy, and I've never been more grateful for anything in my life. You've made me strong, fair trade. He kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. And when he pulled back, his eyes were blazing with love and desire and absolute certainty. Let's get married, he said. Soon. I don't want to wait. How soon? A month. 6 weeks at most. I've waited 7 years for you. I'm not waiting any longer than I have to. Ivy laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. A month it is! They were married 5 weeks later in a small ceremony that was intimate despite the guest list of powerful families and influential figures. Iris stood as Ivy's maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony. Vincent gave a speech that was both touching and threatening, promising to destroy anyone who tried to hurt the new Mrs. Moretti. And Isaac, standing at the altar in a perfectly tailored tux, looked at Ivy like she'd hung the moon. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac pulled Ivy into his arms and kissed her like he was claiming her all over again. The crowd erupted in applause, but Ivy barely heard it. All she could focus on was the man holding her, the ring on her finger, and the absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The reception was a blur of toasts and dancing and congratulations. But the moment Ivy loved most came late in the evening, when Isaac pulled her away from the crowd and out onto a private terrace overlooking the city. Hi, he said, his arms around her waist. Hi yourself, husband. His smile was brilliant. I like the sound of that. Me too. Ivy looked out at the city, at the empire Isaac ruled, at the life they were building together. Are you happy? Deliriously. Are you? More than I ever thought possible. She turned in his arms to face him. 7 years. That's how long I loved you before you ever noticed me. And now look at us. I noticed you, Isaac corrected. I noticed you every single day. I just didn't let myself act on it until I couldn't stand it anymore. Best decision you ever made? Second best. The best was choosing to break my promise to Iris and admit how I felt. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. You're everything, Ivy. My partner, my wife, my reason for building something better than what I inherited. Speaking of building something better, Ivy bit her lip, suddenly nervous. What? I've been thinking about what we could do with all this power and money, all these resources. Isaac's eyes sharpened with interest. I'm listening. A foundation for kids who grow up in neighborhoods where violence is the norm, where they don't have options or opportunities. We could give them a way out. Education, job training, protection from the gangs and dealers who prey on them. She watched his face carefully. I know it's not exactly traditional for someone in your position, but I think we could really make a difference. Isaac stared at her, and for a moment she couldn't read his expression. Then he laughed, a real genuine laugh that lit up his entire face. You want to use crime money to save kids from crime. Is that crazy? It's perfect. You're perfect. He kissed her thoroughly. Let's do it. We'll set it up next week. Make it our first official project as husband and wife. Really? Really? I told you, you make me want to be better. This is exactly the kind of better I want to be. Ivy threw her arms around his neck, overwhelmed with love and gratitude and pure happiness. This was more than she'd ever dreamed of. Not just Isaac, but a partnership that could change lives, that could take all the darkness and danger and transform it into something good. They stood on the terrace for a long time, wrapped in each other, the city spread out below them like a promise. And when they finally went back inside to rejoin their guests, Ivy caught Iris's eye across the room. Her best friend, her sister, smiled and raised her glass in a silent toast. To new beginnings, to second chances, to love that was worth fighting for. Ivy raised her own glass in return, then turned back to Isaac. He was watching her with that intense, burning gaze that still made her heart race even now. What? She asked. Just memorizing this moment. You, me. The beginning of everything. This isn't the beginning. We started 7 years ago. No, 7 years ago I fell in love with you. Tonight is when we start building our life together. There's a difference. He pulled her onto the dance floor, and as they swayed to the music, he whispered against her ear, I love you, Mrs. Moretti. I love you too. And she did, with everything she had, with all the strength she'd discovered in herself, with all the courage it took to walk into his world and claim her place in it, with every piece of her heart that had belonged to him since the moment they met. 7 years of silence had led to this, to partnership and love and a future bright with possibility. It had been worth the wait, every single second,